thoughtful and aggressive with our bans and try and bring things in line. And next ban window coming up, we're actually going to move forward that announcement, bringing it forward by a week. I believe May 19th we'll hit that announcement. And I would anticipate some shakeups in that announcement. I think some things will change about the CC format, some other formats as well. So definitely keep your eyes out for that one. But we have to keep that as an important part of our quiver. We have to use as an important part of our quiver. We have to use as an important part of our quiver.
Hello and welcome to my channel. I've got another one of the quest log for you, and Legend Story Studios has another ban and suspension announcement coming up for their game Flesh and Blood. And it got me thinking, what cards are they gonna reprint, replace, or remove for the game? Now, I made a video about this a little while back, but I was just kind of hitting on some of the generic staples, and there are still a bunch of cards that I want to talk about that I think can get hit with one of those three categories. So which cards do I think LSS has their sights on? As Aurora left relatively quickly, I think they're going to try to avoid that same situation with some of these other strong performing heroes, but the way they're going to mitigate this is through lowering the prices to some of their higher value cards through reprints, allowing for players for ease of transition into older heroes that might be a little too expensive or have a high barrier of entry to get into. As Brian Gottlieb just said in that clip earlier, they're looking to really shake up the CC meta, and I think what better way to shake it up than to unban some really powerful cards. By unbanning some of these older cards, they'll act as replacements for some other problematic cards that we're currently seeing, or maybe cards that will be problematic. With the high seas coming out just over the horizon, it might be a stretch, but here are some more cards that I think need to either be reprinted, replaced, or removed in the game. If this is the first time visiting my channel, or you just haven't subscribed yet, just go ahead and hit that subscription button down below. I'm trying to reach 150 subscribers with this video. So smash that like button. Let's get into what I think needs to be reprinted, removed, or replaced from the game. A couple of months back, just before the Hunted set went live, Legend Story Studios decided that a little card called Zephyr just was gonna be too much for that meta, and it just wasn't gonna fit within the new card design space that they wanted to do. And I think that they're gonna do that again, coming with this set. The first cards I think they have their sights on are some of these Ranger staples that have been around in the game for a very long time, but might prove to be problematic after Ranger gets their much needed support. So the first card I wanna talk about is 3 of a Kind. 3 of a Kind is a red block 2 Ranger non-attack action card that costs 1 and says, draw 3 cards. Until end of turn, you may only play cards from Arsenal. Go again. On its face, 3 of a Kind doesn't seem like that bad of a card. I mean, look, it blocks 2, it costs 1. There's a really heavy restriction that you can't play any cards from hand. They have to come from your arsenal. That is, until you read Marlon's text. Getting to reload every time you draw a card just sounds really strong, especially in an archetype or a class, the pirate class, that's probably gonna be generating lots of gold. Marlon will just be able to, a 3 of a Kind, and sidestep all of the restrictions of this card by pitching into gold. And sure, you have to complete the quest to create some gold. I don't know how easy that's gonna be for pirate class. It might be super easy, relatively easy, that you draw somewhere between 4 to 6 cards in a turn and just fire off a bunch of go again arrows. This could potentially be worse than Lexi, who would shoot 3 or 4 arrows at you. You could probably end up with 6 or 7 arrows with the right board state. I'm not so sure that Brian Gottlieb and James White wants to let a hero go that wide and that strong. We saw how powerful that was in the Lexi meta. As of right now, 3 of a Kind is only a $10 card, and man, I'd be really disappointed if this card ended up getting banned, because my investment into this card for $1 a piece is just kind of gonna plummet, but I won't be mad about it. I get it. My prediction is that 3 of a Kind will be removed from the game and receive a ban come next week. 3 of a Kind isn't the only card that I'm thinking about for Ranger. There's another card that I have in mind, one that's near and dear to my heart. Tri-Shot. Tri-Shot is a blue block 3 Ranger non-attack action card which costs 0 and says, you may activate target bow you control 2 additional times this turn. Go again. Tri-Shot is an old card developed in the early days of Flesh and Blood with the Crucible of War. Now, this card I've always wanted to make work with any hero that I've had, but it's just never had its moment, its opportunity to shine. On its face, it seems really good. It's a blue block 3, and it lets you activate your bow more times so you can shoot more arrows and go wider, and albeit it's not as strong as 3 of a kind in Marlin. However, as long as Death Dealer is still legal and New Horizons is still a helmet that Rangers are able to don, it feels really powerful to load 2 separate arrows. Pitching a blue to draw 3 cards and playing another card, it feels like a really strong mulligan. Now, I don't think that this card is going to be too overpowered or too strong, or that it could get out of control, but it just might. So I don't think it should get a ban. I think it would probably end up on the suspension list until Death Dealer leaves. However, until now, I'm going to say that this card has a really strong possibility of being banned from the game, so I would say it will be removed temporarily. These next set of cards receive 0 sympathy from me. I will be more than happy with whatever LSS decides to do with these cards. But the first one I'm going to talk about, and I'll give you a hint that both of them are in the Wizard class. But the next set of cards that I think are going to catch some kind of ban, reprint, or replacement are going to be, first, Aether Wildfire. Aether Wildfire is a red block 3 wizard non-attack action that costs 2 and says deal 4 arcane damage to target opposing hero. If Aether Wildfire is played during an opponent's turn, until end of turn, action card effects that deal arcane damage instead deal that much arcane damage plus X, where X is the damage dealt by Aether Wildfire. Kano, everyone's favorite hero to hate. And for incredibly good reason. Aether Wildfire has just catapulted Kano into a really weird place in the meta, where if everybody doesn't prepare for him, he just destroys everyone. But if everyone's prepared for him, then he's just gone. He's been one of the pariahs of the Flesh and Blood card game. And Aether Wildfire, Kano, it's truly been the combination that's prevented LSS from exploring the wizard archetype. They've been very scared of just overprinting wizard cards that just makes Kano too strong. And at this point, I think it's just time to say goodbye to Aether Wildfire, which is why I think it should catch a ban. However, it's not Aether Wildfire alone that just gets out of control. There's another card combined with Aether Wildfire, which at first on its face felt like a really good compromise. It's just not doing it. The card is Open the Floodgates in all 3 colors. Open the Floodgates comes in all 3 colors and blocks 3, is a wizard non-attack action card which costs 2 and says deal 3, 2, or 1 arcane damage to target hero. Surge. If this deals more than 3, 2, 1 damage, draw 2 cards. That's dependent on whether it's red, yellow, or blue. If Aether Wildfire hits for 3 damage, you're just dead. You're just dead. Because now for the rest of the turn, they get to shoot Open the Floodgate at you. After Open the Floodgate at you, they get to draw 2 cards, and suddenly they just combo you to death and can win out of nowhere. I was at my local armory the other day and watching a pitch stack Kano, which granted I'll say is very skillful gameplay. It's on the opponent to beat him, but he was playing Jarl, and he made one mistake, and that one error led to his death. The Kano player just popped off and for like probably a solid 5 minutes was just saying, here's some more arcane damage, here's some more arcane damage. And it turned out at the end he was able to send 2 separate blazings for about 150 damage at the end of the turn, and it just kind of makes you feel hopeless and goes against the grain of the game. These 2 cards, Aether Wildfire and Open the Floodgates, I think the LSS, while I might say, hey, these cards should be banned, I don't think they should just be banned. I think that they should be replaced by other cards that help us explore the Kano archetype in a way that doesn't feel unfair. I'm okay with letting Kano play on my turn, but please don't make me feel helpless as I'm playing into it. I think that both these cards should be removed and replaced because we can't let the wizard class, a really cool class and concept, just die. Well, what I think that LSS needs to do is maybe think about unbanning some cards to help 2 of our 3 wizards. This is going to be the most controversial part of my video, and just please hear me out and let me just explain it. Don't just click off right away. Stay for the juicy details. In light of the bans that I mentioned, I think there's going to be necessary concessions made to the wizard class and other underrepresented heroes that deserve a spot in the limelight and who are going to stay around for at least another 6 months, even if you do buff them through unbanning these cards. Now, I think that there are other ways to make them stronger, perhaps through some expansion slot cards, but I don't know that information. However, if they were to bring some of these cards back, I wouldn't be incredibly angry if they banned Aether Wildfire and opened the floodgates. So the first card I think deserves to be unbanned is something that they've already experimented with, and they already unbanned it in the commoner format, and that's Ball Lightning. Ball Lightning comes in all 3 colors, blocks for 0, and is a lightning attack action card. It costs 0 and can attack for 3, 2, or 1 depending on its color, and it says, whenever a lightning or elemental action card would deal damage this combat chain, instead it deals that much damage plus 1. Unbanning this card would drastically shake up the meta, and this would do a lot for the Oscilio hero. The ability to force cards out of your opponent's hand by sending Ball Lightning, Ball Lightning, Ball Lightning to prevent somewhere between 9 to 15 damage would be incredibly useful for this hero that just wants to send some kind of disruptive or powerful elemental wizard card at the end of his turn. One thing that I think will keep this card balanced is that Oscilio is the only hero in all of Classic Constructed that can actually use this card. And they don't have to keep it unbanned forever. They can just unban it, unsuspend it, whatever they want to do, just for a little bit, and let Oscilio have some fun with it. It's not too crazy, guys. It blocks 0. However, it can get some new life to cards like Shock Charmers. Maybe let us design around it a bit more. Add like some cool flavor, some really amazing combos with this guy. I already have a couple of lines thought up in my head that I would rather not just give away for free. It's just there's already so many defensive tools that will let players handle the Ball Lightning onslaught, and it would just say, oh, this is just a normal power turn. This is something that I could just easily block, just take an off turn, let the Oscilio do his thing, and I'll get him next time, right? On my next turn or the turn after. Like, I think that unbanning Ball Lightning will also give a lot of Aurora players the ability to pivot from Aurora over to Oscilio, because now they can just say, oh, you know, I can kind of play a similar hero, maybe change things up a bit, and I can still be really powerful by sending Ball Lightning turns. I don't know, maybe this pushes the envelope too much, and some of you guys have got to talk some sense into me. But I would not mind attacking an Oscilio with a powerful on-hit like Command and Conquer or Spinal Crush if he has 4 0 blocks in hand. So I think that Ball Lightning needs to be unbanned so it can replace some of these other cards. Maybe we don't get Ball Lightning, but I think it's possible that we could get another card if we're removing the 9 of piece, open the floodgates that lets you draw 2 cards. I think that we can get rid, if we're getting rid of open the floodgates, we can replace it with a different card, only at 3 of, that's on the ban list, and you probably already know what I'm thinking of. It's the Tome of Aetherwind. Tome of Aetherwind is a red block 2 wizard non-attack action card which costs 0 and says choose 2. You may choose the same mode more than once. The next card you play this turn with an effect that deals arcane damage instead deals that much arcane damage plus 1. Second option is draw a card. I know that this was banned in the book burnings and it might go against some of their principles, that it doesn't fit in line with any other of the wizard heroes in the game, but hear me out. I have some strong conditions on this reintroduction to the game. First, this card would be in place of banning open the floodgates and Aether Wildfire, and only if there is 0 love printed for wizards in the High Seas set. Like, if we're going to hurt Kano and Oscilio with some bans, we gotta give them some love so that our fellow wizard players don't just leave the game. One of my teammates said that Oscilio with Tome of Aetherwind does some unholy things, and I might be inclined to agree with him, and maybe that's taking it a step too far. However, Oscilio isn't doing really well on the LL point board, guys. I think it's okay if we can buff him just a little bit and force us to play around him in exchange for making Aether Wildfire and Open the Floodgates no longer legal. I think that Tome of Aetherwind deserves to be unbanned so it can replace Aether Wildfire. Now that I'm done speculating about what might be and what LSS should do, I kind of want to move on to what the current meta is. I think that they want to avoid another Aurora situation, and Florian has just been putting in work. I think it's completely reasonable for them to just tone him down a little bit. They don't have to ban a lot from the Runeblade class. They don't have to get rid of a lot from the Earth talent, but maybe it's worth, considering making him just a little bit weaker. However, doing this poses a really strong challenge, because if you nerf the Runeblade class, you're hurting Vincent players, and if you nerf the Earth class, you're hurting the Verdance players and the Jarl players. Probably Verdance more so. It just depends on what your ban targets are. I just think that this is a really delicate situation that it's going to take some navigating. But I think that the first card that needs to be addressed when it comes to the Earth talent would be Rootbound Carapace Red. Rootbound Carapace Red blocks 3, costs 0, is an Earth defense reaction card, and says, decompose. You may banish 2 Earth cards and an action card from your graveyard. If you do, this gets +1. This is a card that blocks extremely well. At its base, it's a red that just blocks 3 in reaction speed. However, the ability to decompose, block 4, and at reaction speed is just way too powerful for all of the Earth heroes. The ability to block a lot while also fulfilling your game plan is incredibly strong and should not be underrepresented. Just the fact alone that a lot of Florians run 6 of this card and Verdance runs all 9 of it is enough to tell you and show you just how powerful it really is. You could just decompose on your opponent's turn, and then on your turn attack decomposing, and then decompose again off another D-react, and you're turned on within a turn and a half. Players in Florian can just pivot to blue decompose. So sure, they're no longer blocking 4, instead they're blocking 2 and 3. So instead of running reds and yellows, they're running yellows and blues, and rather than having a block 4 and 3, they have a block 3 and 2, which is not so bad, and it feels maybe just a little bit more balanced, just a little bit. Considering there's so many cards and attacks in this game that attack for both 1 and 2, I don't think it would hurt that much. But maybe that wouldn't be so bad if they give us some kind of wizard Earth support. Come on, LSS, elemental wizard attack that decomposes when played, that would be awesome. So I think that Rootbound Carapace Red will be removed from the game. If LSS doesn't want to touch Rootbound Carapace Red, I think that there are other cards they can touch in the Runeblade archetype that won't necessarily affect the other Runeblades as much. And it'll help to tone Florian down a bit, maybe force people to have to change the way that they think about him and build new decks. And the first card I think that they might have to address would be Reaping Blade. Reaping Blade is a Runeblade weapon, 2-handed sword that says, once per turn action, pay 1 resource, attack. If a hero has more life than any other hero, they can't gain life. Banning Reaping Blade would be the easiest way to tone down Florian, without impacting the other heroes of the same class and same talents. Reaping Blade fits perfectly into his late game plan. Every blue in his hand turns into a 1-card 5 because you pitch 2 into Grasp and make 2 rune chants, and you have the 1 floating to send the Reaping Blade for 3, and now you're sending split damage 2 and 3, which is incredibly powerful if you haven't known in this game. Why not just ban Grasp? I don't think that Grasp is a good ban. I think that Grasp is a card that deserves to stay in the game. It's once Grasp now produces 2 value off of 1 blue and attacking with Reaping Blade is that it starts to become a little bit overtuned. And so far, the only legendary that's been banned in the game was Crown of Seeds. Crown of Seeds! That card was completely busted, broken, beyond belief. The only one to ever see a ban, and I don't think that Grasp the Arcanite is anywhere close to the power of Crown of Seeds. And I think that it's possible that we get some kind of expansion slot to replace Reaping Blade to maintain that 1-card 5 for Florian that maybe doesn't have the passive effect, or maybe it's a 1-card 4, reduce it from 1 resource for 3 to 1 resource for 2. I can see that happening. But until I see that, I'm just going to say that LSS is going to remove Reaping Blade from the game, and it'll be banned.
When it comes to general pricing of key cards to play Flesh and Blood at a competitive level, I think there's opportunity for more high caliber reprints, and you saw that with Command & Conquer and the Hunted. I can confirm that there is another very, very high caliber card that will feature in the expansion slot of High Seas. It's another beautiful surprise for the fans yet to see. One of two surprises still in the store. You know,
I think there's a lot of surprises in High Seas still.
There's one big one. There's one big one that like there's one big one. All you guys think that we've shown you everything about High Seas, the Lost Treasures. I mean, the Lost Treasures are pretty special, but there's still one more really big surprise in High Seas.
Both James White and Brian Gottlieb are really excited for this special treasure card, and they kind of hinted that this is a reprint that maybe a lot of people have been asking for, and I agree with them. This card needs to be desperately reprinted, and it makes no sense for it to be anything else other than Codex of Frailty. Codex of Frailty is a yellow block 2 assassin or ranger non-attack action card. Costs 0 and says, each hero puts an attack action card from their graveyard face down into their arsenal. Each hero that does discards a card. Create a ponder token under your control and a frailty token under each opponent's control. Go again. On the opposite side of the Warmongers uselessness spectrum is this card, Codex of Frailty. It is over $100 each, and it's 100% worth every last penny of that. This is a 1 card, potentially 8, maybe 10 value, depending on what class you're playing. It's arguably one of the best cards in the entire game, and I am so happy that I was playing when Outsiders came out and I was able to pick them up for $20 a piece. Best deal I've made in Fab in a long time. That being said, this card is still very high in value. It makes it really challenging for players to pivot from one hero to another. So if all of the Aurora players wanted to go play Slippy or Mario, they would have to shell out at least $1,000, 300 of it on codexes. You could definitely find some really good budget builds of these heroes that let you win armories. However, when you see the price points on some of these competitive decks, it really beats you down. So I think we're gonna get some kind of specialty alt art of Codex of Frailty, or even just print it with its original art, and I'll still be happy. This card needs to come down in price, and I say this thing needs a reprint. The next card I wanna talk about here is one that I have just not liked from the moment it was printed. It seems really strong, but it just, every time I use it, it doesn't work. And I just don't understand why everybody wants this thing. Warmongers Diplomacy is a blue block 3, costs 0 generic non-attack action card that says, starting with the heroes to your left, each hero chooses war or peace. If they choose war, the only actions they may play or activate during their next turn are weapon and attack actions. If they choose peace, the only actions they may play or activate during their next turn are non-weapon, non-attack actions. This is the most feels bad card to buy right now. This thing is like $100 a piece, $80 a piece. If you want to catch a play set, you're looking at like $250 for a blue block 3 that just might not even work when you play it. I've only ever seen this card used effectively maybe once. I've had some friends advocate for Warmongers Diplomacy to get banned because with Ranger coming up and all of these gold-centered heroes, it would just completely shut down their turns and stopping them from doing anything. But I am not convinced. Me, a thinking man, I am not convinced because every time I played this card, my opponent has just as easily had all attacks, all non-attacks, or even attack reactions on their attack. So it requires a lot of big game playing in order to use Warmongers, and even if you do all of the math and think that you've got it correct, you don't. You just don't. This is just a glorified blue block 3. With $70 pop for this card is just unjustifiable. LSS needs to reprint this thing in this set. The price needs to come down, please. $20 each, maximum is what it's worth. Well, I think that's enough controversial takes for today. Did you like my list? Do you think what cards do you think need to be reprinted, replaced, or removed from the game? Tell me what you think in the comments below, and please remember to subscribe, like, talk about this video, share it with your friends, and I'll see you on the next one.